I was part of that third or fourth wave of kids that came into the scene right after Minor Threat broke up. And, I think there were some growing pains. I think the scene was, getting bigger and bigger. But for me, I had no context for that. It was, I didn't know what had come before. For me, it was just this, amazing music. And, I was this 12-year-old kid that was just wide-eyed and just open to everything that was happening. And I was lucky enough to have it in my backyard.
One of the cool things about the DC scene is that it was like accessible superheroes, like the people that were on stage were also like in the audience at shows.
You could be right up next to the stage. You could get on the stage. You could sing along.
I dove straight, head first into the whole scene and did a fanzine called Metrozine about what was happening locally.
Any little bit of hope that I saw in this scene, I would grab onto it like a life preserver. And at that point, Metrozine was one of those.
I was working in a record store, and I get this call from this, sounds like a real little kid, and he asks me if he can use my photos in his fanzine. And I didn't know who he was. He sounded so young, and I was just like, I don't know, I thought I'd have to go in the darkroom and make him prints and stuff. And he was just like, no, I can cut up your fanzine and just paste it into mine, and I was like, sure, knock yourself out, kid.
Scott was everywhere. I feel like I must have seen him at every show I ever went to, and there was a lot of people recording things for posterity and knowing that something big was in the process of happening and that they needed to know what it was and write it down and interview people. But he was so young.
Hey, did you enjoy the show?
Yeah, it's excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's
Great.
One of the first people I interviewed was Ian, and at that point he was in between bands, and he was pretty down on what was going on, and it was really an interesting point in the scene at that time because he didn't know what was going to happen next.
Really, fanzines were the only way to find out about stuff back then. And, I was taking photos, and then when I discovered punk rock, I just started taking photos of all the bands, just wanted to document this new, really exciting thing that I found. And then, I wanted to share the photos after that, so I started a fanzine. I called it Zone 5, and it was primarily a photo zine, but there were interviews with bands and a scene report from New York. It was just this awesome community of kids all over just doing stuff. And I really think the DIY DC thing really gave us all permission to just, go do it.
It was like, as I recall, it was like there was a lull. Like the hardcore thing had kind of happened for us. And we all had a lot of energy, and, also, the people on this scene are just brilliant, energetic, creative people. And we're in our 20s, and no one seems intent on having a career of any kind.
Things had changed for all of us, and we were all like 18, we were about to graduate from high school. We were starting to just feel the pressure of like, now what? The bands who were playing, were sort of less like saying what they think. This is what we think about, this is what we observe and we comment on. And now they were starting to sing about how they feel.
We were all getting older, and we were getting smarter and more mature. And I think so many of us just started getting really disillusioned as, the audiences got bigger, and a lot of people that wanted those shows to be a different experience.
We just all kind of everybody was fed up with the whole kind of violent aspects of the scene, I think. And that's when I think that conversation really opened up.
The DC Department of Recreation had a program called a summer employment program. We had access to this Xerox machine and we would just make goofy posters, and that's how Revolution Summer actually came about.
Chris Thompson made a flyer. It was like a lunch meet. I think we were playing Rites of Spring, and he put like Revolution Summer on there. And I remember seeing it and thinking like, well, that's a pretty strong claim.
As far as my take on Revolution Summer, a lot of it was a reaction to our music scene kind of falling to crap.
If you're really into marijuana and having stuff like that on you, if you go over to the other stage tomorrow, there's gonna be dumb, stupid, smoking sounds and rednecks all over the place. You'll feel right at home. Come here tomorrow. They're gonna be all over the fucking lawn over there tomorrow listening to the Beach Boys, if that's where you fit in, man. Yeah. Hey, look, man. Hey, get this guy. Hey, right. Okay, this guy. We're either here for rock against Reagan, rock against racism. Raise up your fucking hand, man. Rock against racism. Come on, raise it up. All this is a lot more of a problem than your fucking self-indulgent drug habit. So why don't you get your fucking priorities straight, you fucking asshole? Son of a waving the guns and engage his little mind. Taking all the way, the weather and the days, yeah, so fast. Know how many ages you think I'm spending? My. Well, I know what kind of pictures. You're better than me.
And it just sort of like gave everyone this new energy. And in that was a whole new wave of music that was unlike the music before.
So the great thing about Revolution Summer was all the bands that sort of came together at that point were all different musically. You know, I think they were challenging themselves, you know, musically, stylistically, but I also think they were challenging the audiences.
Revolution Summer was something where, you know, it's the power of the mind, you know, it's like the power of ideas to move and change things. We all had that consciousness that it was time for revolution.
Maybe I'll use the word moral compass or a positive energy to it that really trademarked the DC scene is what I think Revolution Summer brought back and what made it special for a lot of people, that there is a power and grace in standing up for what you think is right and in taking action. Is really just, it's hard to put words around it because it's a feeling. It was
Was this a time that changed me forever? Absolutely. My life is dated. You know, my birthday is in 1959, but my life started again in 1985. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Revolution Summer, you know, some people thought it was hyperbole. For me, it was not. I began again.
Well, I mean, Revolution Summer, I felt like, well, we were probably out on tour when it happened, so we missed it.
Yeah, I think we missed it. I think a lot of the bands that are associated with Revolution Summer, it was sort of like, let's play for each other again. Let's do our own thing, and everybody else can kind of piss off.
That was the one part where I felt that there was some irony, because here it is, this scene has sprung up. Ostensibly, one of the reasons why it sprung up is as a reaction and a counterpoint to this violence in the scene. But my personal experience was that there was more once that whole scene had started up. There was this sort of general sense that, okay, you don't want us, fine. So they would come to our shows or Scream shows or whatever other gigs were going on.
It was a lot of sort of the dinosaur people from the old hardcore scene, the whole hardcore punk scene. They were forming new bands, but yet because they were all new bands and they had a whole new statement to make and stuff and everything, it felt like that bands like us and Scream and Marginal Man, we were like, we were left out of the party. We were not invited.